Let's check in on our great friend Robert F. Kennedy Jr., shall we? This piece of video is from Fox Carolina. It's an interview with RFK Jr.
What I love about RFK segments is you know exactly what he's going to say because he's so consistent.
Right. Well, you have a good idea of what he's going to say because he's going to talk about something that he said before, and then he's going to say he didn't really say it, or if he did say it, he didn't mean it, it was a mistake, and he has
taken out of context,
taken out of context. Right, exactly. Exactly. So, this video is from Fox Carolina. Now, this is an interview that RFK Jr. did a couple of weeks ago in the great, beautiful city of Charleston, South Carolina. And it just surfaced on Twitter yesterday, to my knowledge. I just saw it for the first time. It was just posted there to an account that I follow. But here's RFK talking police reform and qualified immunity because, you have to imagine that with Biden poised to really dominate the black vote in South Carolina during the primary, RFK is going to try to appeal to more of the white voters, more who lean more conservative, obviously, in South Carolina, even the Democrats. They don't like this talk of police reform and qualified immunity. So here's the answer he gave about qualified immunity for police officers.
You said you want to remove qualified immunity and transform the police. What does that look like for you to transform the police?
Yeah, I don't, if it says on my website that we're going to remove qualified immunity, that's wrong.
On your website it says transform the police. In an interview you said you wanted to remove.
Yeah, I don't, that is an error.
Yeah, that's when I thought that my constituency was the progressives. Now that I realize the constituency is the conservative Democrats, forget what I said. I mean the other thing. Or actually, I'm not for any of that.
I do not want to. I don't think it's feasible to remove qualified immunity.
Okay.
Oh.
I think the police are having a hard enough time hiring people right now.
That's true.
And that a lot of interactions that are, the police have nothing to do with civil rights or race, and we can't put each individual police officers in a position where anybody who has an interaction with them can then sue them.
Okay, so you understand that, I believe it's 75 to 80% of voters in the South Carolina Democratic primary are black voters, since a vast majority of whites in South Carolina are Republicans who vote in the Republican primary. So to go down to South Carolina and say on their local TV, in Charleston, a very, fairly large city for that state at least, largely black city, I don't think a lot of interactions with the police have much to do with race. And so, I don't really think it's a good idea to be too hard on the cops because they're having a little trouble. But let's hear him. Sorry, did you have anything?
Well, this goes back to what we've been saying. He is not some radical anti-establishment lefty candidate. He is a conventional Democrat circa 1970. That's all this guy is.
Right, with a couple of issues that he bucks the party line on, which is why he appeared as this bright, shiny object. And I called this from the very beginning. I told all of you guys, including the RFK stands who have, good on you. Thank you for hearing us out and sticking with us. I'm not trying to beat up on you, but I got to tell you, I told you, he looks good now. The more you check under the hood with this guy, the less you're going to like what you see. That's what I said at the very beginning. All right, so here we go.
And the hits just keep on coming.
The hits just keep on coming, indeed.
Individually. And
so you don't have any plans in place to remove qualified immunity?
No, I'm not going to remove qualified immunity, but I'm going to use the Justice Department to address any abuse of the use, particularly of deadly force, in interactions between black Americans and police or anybody else. So, and I think that that's a civil rights issue that has to be addressed, and I'm going to address it aggressively.
Another major issue.
Okay, so look, there's a few things about this. Number one, qualified immunity, ending qualified immunity, that's the cop-out answer that shit-lib candidates and shit-lib politicians go to when they're pressured on police reform. That's the least you can do. Also, when you're talking about qualified immunity, you're talking about civil suits against the cop. So in the case where a cop commits a crime, qualified immunity wouldn't really weigh on that at all because they'd be charged with a crime. qualified immunity is the least of what we could expect from any anti-establishment candidate vis-a-vis police reform. And he's backtracking on that. And when I say backtracking, of course, what I'm talking about is the fact that he did say to the black press, oddly enough, the underdog presidential candidate
really?
and his pledge to black America. In a one-on-one interview with the Black Press of America, Kennedy spoke about his relentless focus on combating environmental racism, ending qualified immunity for law enforcement officers, and addressing the alarming racial disparities within the American medical system. So he told the black press that he was going to do it. He tells now the white press in South Carolina that he's not going to do it. You said, Russell, a while ago, I mean, you say this a lot, people are patterns. Where you see someone behave one way one time, that's likely indicative of how they will behave in the future multiple times over and over and over again. It's now a pattern, a well-established pattern, or RFK will say something and then pretend he didn't say it, or pretend he didn't mean it, or pretend he forgot that he said it and now he has to go back and correct it. He tends to make a lot of this stuff up as he goes along, and this is another example.
Yeah, I would hope, and a lot of them have come around. I've seen after the Israel thing, I saw a lot of the RFK stats say I'm out. I think it's less and less tenable to sustain the argument. Well, he's off on this or that, but I really like his position on this. This guy is just full of shit. He's been full of shit from the beginning. We said, and look, we had really open minds. I know I did. When I started reading his book at first, because a lot of what he was talking about with the virus of unknown origin checked out, I was like, yeah, man, hey, this is something. Let's, I was ready to really, not necessarily support the campaign, but definitely be sympathetic to it. And the more I read, the more I realized, oh, all right. So this guy he's a liar, basically. There's some truth here, there's some lies here, there's some crazy here. And unless you're going to sit there and pick apart everything he says, or you're very familiar with the subject, you don't know which is which. You don't need a guy like that. What do you need somebody like that for? The whole point is, if you're supposed to be an expert, I'm supposed to be able to rely on you to tell me the truth. And it's not just being wrong. Anybody can be misinformed or make a mistake. It's the incomplete information. It was what the intentional omissions, misleading statements of fact. I said, oh, this guy's full of shit. He's a bullshit artist. And all of this is consistent with that. He's a bullshit artist. He tells the black press, yeah, I'm for this. He tells the white press, yeah, I'm for that. I mean, come on, man. Anyone who's still holding on to this guy, I just don't get it. Again, I understand the hurt and pain that's out there about how the government handled COVID. And that's valid, but this is not your avatar. This is not your standard bearer. There are other people who are good on that subject.
Please clap.